Now that's what I call a good golf swing. But it ought to be. He's my #1 assistant. I'd like to introduce you to Artie McNichol. He's going to demonstrate for you the fundamentals of the golf swing, what we call the common denominators, which, as you will see, is nothing more than an athletic move in the golf swing. Artie played the tour some 10 years, from 72 to 81.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, the first 5 years I couldn't break an egg out there. I came in to see you in 1977, and my golf swing got a whole lot better, and I had a lot more fun out there. But I'm not so sure there's much of an athlete left in this body.
Don't tell me that now. For sure, golf professionals are athletes, and that swing that you just made was an athletic swing. And I want all of you to know, all athletes have athletic moves, whether it's golf, whether it's baseball, whether it's boxing, whether it's hockey, football, it makes no difference. All pro golfers are athletes.
Everyone that has ever played golf has at one time or another wanted to hit the ball long and straight. Today, Jimmy will demonstrate and explain common denominator number 5, the firing of the right side. Jimmy and Artie will show that once the right side has been loaded, a player must learn to fire the entire right side of the body at the ball. This will enable the player to maximize his full potential in achieving distance as well as accuracy. Jimmy will also explain how the right hip must go up to hit down on the ball.
Would you like to work on your game at the world-famous Jimmy Ballard Golf Workshop at Doral Country Club in Miami, Florida? The place where so many top touring professionals go to benefit from Jimmy's proven and time-tested methods. Pros at the pinnacle of their careers that still come home to Jimmy to work on the basic fundamentals. Well, if you can do the next best thing. Bring Jimmy home to you. The world's most successful teacher has just completed his all-new instructional videotape. Over an hour long, it methodically spells out and illustrates the very same fundamentals, complete with tips and drills that have helped so many touring pros. If you can't go to Jimmy, do your game a favor. Take Jimmy Ballard home with you. To order your copy, send a check for $49.95 plus $4.95 shipping and handling, payable to Ballard Reed Associates, care of Resolution, 1 Mill Street, Burlington, Vermont. Or use your credit card and call 1-800-843-0048.
For a golfer to be able to fire the right side, he must load the right side. It's a move common to all athletes. We do not want anyone to sway. We do not teach a sway. We teach a coil behind the ball of the spine and the body into the set of the right leg, like a good athlete would do. If a guy wanted to chop a tree down with an axe, he'd get here to square the axe up to the tree. How far do you think he'd get with his head down and a stiff left arm trying to chop a tree down? So his spine, his body would shift to the right. Can everybody see that? That's important. We tell it in this manner. It's like you had a wall waist high right here. Your upper body, your shoulders, would coil back against that wall. A sway would be to go over that wall, to go through that wall. And we've certainly not told anyone to do this. You could never get back to the ball if you swayed or went outside the leg and over the wall. We want you to coil up to that wall. That's what we call loading the right leg, loading up so you can fire your right side and go down the line of flight. Where would you toss from? Your right leg, the wall. Where would a forehand down the line in tennis go? Right into the wall. Where do you think a baseball player hits from? Into the wall. And you're going to tell me to play the game of golf and to propel a ball in that direction, you got to keep your head down, stay on your left side. Do you really think you could propel a ball in that direction from there? No way in the world. Most of you sway away from the wall on your backswing. So on your downswing, you pull down, go back, and come across the line of flight every single time. If you'd move up against this wall into the inside of your right foot, it's the right foot is square. It's into the right foot, the right knee, the right thigh. You coil into it. Now my whole right side is loaded for me to make a hitting motion, a tossing motion, a natural motion to throw or hit something in that direction. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, I'm going to leave it at that then, and I'm going to assume that you understand three basic things here. One, that we're not going to try to hold the head down and still over the ball. We're just going to forget the head. The second thing is that you understand connecting the left arm and getting your legs braced, and we want you to take what, as you set up to the ball, this triangle, we call it. Your hands and arms in relation to your shoulder joints would form a V or a triangle. Every great player takes this V or this triangle straight back together to waist high, all of them. And when they do that, do you see when you do that, your right arm is above your left arm where you started, to waist high. The club hasn't changed. The club is still in the center of my body. I'm choking it to show you, but can you see if I take it back, it's still in the center of my body. Now, from there, the right elbow folds, and the club falls right in. And where am I? Loaded right into my right leg. I'm in a position now to take my right side and hit something hard. Does that make sense to everybody? But most of you will find you've got the stiff arm, keep your head down, and most of you are over here trying to hit something hard. Big mistake. Does that make sense to everyone? And I want you to understand this. If you're a right-handed golfer, it's a right-handed game. If you're a left-handed golfer, it's a left-handed game. And I've heard some very ridiculous statements made. I've had a lot of left people playing golf, right-handed, who tell me they were naturally left-handed, but were advised because, as they thought, and I will prove to you before you leave that it's wrong, they were advised that the golf swing is all left side. It's all a pull with the left arm. That is so ridiculous that it really, I don't even know why you should have to talk about it, but you do, because everyone's been educated that way. But I want you to understand there's no power in pulling your left arm in a golf ball, not in the manner that it's been taught. There is no power. The power is in your left arm laying here, which creates what we call inner force of centrifugal force, and the power is in the left arm being soft and laying here connected, where you can take your right side and hit it hard. Ben Hogan, when he wrote the 5 Fundamentals of Golf in 1957, he couldn't have written it any better, in my opinion. He talked about two things. He talked about holding the handkerchief under his left armpit all the way to the finish. And you can see that. He showed how you held the handkerchief under your left armpit, and when you finished, the left arm just folded on your body. That's the 5 Fundamentals of Golf. And Ben Hogan also made another statement. He said, you hold the handkerchief under your left armpit back and through to the finish. And he says, I wish I had 3 right hands to hit it with. Now, folks, in my opinion, this is the greatest ball striker that ever lived. You can take his golf swing, which he built. He did not have nearly as good a golf swing in the 40s as he had in the 50s and afterwards. He totally changed his swing, which is very obvious in the pictures that we show you where he changed it from. And here, in my opinion, and you look at it, and then you see what he changed to, and you see what every great player does, and we'll show them all to you before you leave. They all had the handkerchief under their left arm, and they all fire their right side.
Now let's all join Jimmy back out on the practice range.
Now, before we fire the right side, as we've said before, we have to load it. I want you to please understand, there's no way you can take your right side and square it up to the ball if you stay on your left side. Anyone who stays on their left side has to pull the club down, and there again we're in the reverse pivot.
Now notice George Knudsen here. Watch how as he moves back, the weight moves back to the right leg, goes into his inside of his right foot. Now watch his right side fire here, and his weight ends up on the left side.
Now, you can't go over the top if you get into your right side and fire the right side from the ground up, the right foot, the right knee, the right hip, the right lat, all starts down in a chain reaction, starting from the ground up. Now there again, you start from here, which is how you would spring the shaft, and that's how you're firing the right side. You would never start the downswing by leading with your left hip. If you did, you would be pulling the club down and creating an angle of the club out of center. You never start down by pulling down with the arms. That makes the body tilt back and makes you hit across the line into the block position. You start down by taking the right side, and as Ben Hogan said in 1957 in the Fundamentals of Golf, you take your right side and it unwinds to your left. Hogan says, I wish I had 3 right hands. That's proof to me of what we're talking about. He loads into his right leg, and he says it's like a shortstop making the play to the second baseman with his right side. You can see how my right foot, right knee, right hip would start forward. That would make my spine and my whole right side square up at impact, and that lets me stretch my right side and allows me to extend my right side down the line. You want to get an extended right side down the line of flight. That's the only way you can hit a descending blow down and through the ball. You have to keep your right hip up to be able to hit down, or what we call it drives up. When the right foot, right knee, right hip kicks up, I feel my right side hitting down. If I pull my left side at the ball, my right hip goes under my left, my right elbow would tuck in, and I'm hitting under and up and across the line every single trip. The more I tuck my right elbow in and pull my left arm, the more across the ball I am.
Now here's Raymond Floyd. Watch his right side fire. You can just see the power come out of it as he starts down. Now look at the right side. His hips finish level. Look at the stretch through the ball.
I'd like for you to think about it in another way. If I told you to take the back of your left hand and square up and hit something solid, could you do that pulling your left arm, or do you think you'd fire your right side to backhand someone? I'd like to demonstrate on this cart. If I go over here and I wanted to set up with the back of my left hand to this cart seat, the way I would hit that cart seat is first get into my right leg, but I wouldn't stay on my right side. I wouldn't stay behind the ball and square up and pull my left arm. I couldn't. The low point of my arm would be behind the ball hitting up. What would I do when I got into my right side? I'd fire my right side, allowing the back of my left hand to square up to the club, to the back, to the cart seat, not the butt of my hand. If you slide and pull, you'd be hitting the cart seat with the butt of your hand, with a stiff left arm, with the body hanging back. That's under, up, and across, plus you're hitting the cart seat a glancing blow. But by starting with your right side and feeling the left elbow fold down, I'm hitting that cart seat hard with the back of my left hand, and where would my right hand be? Squaring up, my hips would be level. I can hit the cart hard. I could push it forward. What would happen if I pulled and stayed back on my right side? The idea is what I want you to understand in the golf swing is, if I'm going to propel something in that direction, I cannot pull this way and propel something in that direction. Could you imagine a baseball batter pulling the handle of the bat? His right arm would be under his left, and he'd hit it to right field all day long, or he'd have to hang back and be a pull hitter. But if he's going to hit a home run, he fires his right, his left folds down, the bat squares up, and he hits it with the head of the bat, not the handle of the bat. Golf pros for years have told people they feel like they pull the handle of the club at the ball. How in the world can you propel a ball in that direction, pulling your left arm and the handle of the club at the ball? I would suggest trying to hit it with the club head. And if you want to hit it with the club head, your left arm is going to fold, and you'll fire your right side, and that will square that club head up. That will let you hit a descending blow down the line of flight. That's firing your right side. If you're pulling your left, you can never square it up, and you can never hit it solid. It's always a glancing blow across. Now, I think one of the best examples that I can give you of the right side unwinding up to the left is I want you to understand this. Look at Trevino and look at Gary Player. Gary Player and Trevino, when they hit a shot, you can see every time they fire their right side so hard that they take steps forward. Now, the point I want you to see here, if I fire my right side and I step forward, can you see how I would be extending down the line of flight? If you notice, Gary Player, and if you notice, Lee Trevino, you'll also find when they fire their right side, their right leg works down the outer rail, which is down the line of flight. When it's done incorrectly, when the players pull and slide and stay behind the ball, the low point of their arc is behind the ball, hitting up and across the line, and you can see where all the weights back here, they would fall backward out of the shot. Now, one other thing, Artie, you know, we talk about the roll a lot, and I guess that's because it's the most common thing that we find with our golfers. And it all goes back again, and it sounds a little repetitive maybe at times, but people are told to hold their head still, get a stiff left arm, and take the club inside. That, to me, is one of the worst things you can tell somebody. And what happens, let's demonstrate the roll one more time, and then let's talk about a feel to get a person out of the roll. First, show if you kept your head still in the body how your left arm would roll over your right. Right there's an angle. The club is on too flat a plane. His arm is disconnected. There's no way there that he can use his legs and body. So from there, you'd pull through with the arms over the top, pull with the arms, and block it. Every time we see the club hit over the top, we always find it's because the guy took it inside and rolled it. Tell them about a feel you feel with that left elbow to get the club back right and it ties it into the shoulder. Describe that feel.
A lot of times, if you can just make sure that your left elbow, which should start pointed at your left hip, at the top of your backswing, if it's pointed at the ground, it'd be very difficult to have rolled your left arm over your right, because if you did, the left elbow would be pointed at you, Coach.
Right.
Out.
And look at the socket, how the arm is disconnected from the socket. Now, there again, if you held the handkerchief under your left armpit, plugged it in, do you see how the left elbow would be down? That's where good hitters would be in any sport. Now, from there, show them how, as it squares up, where the left elbow would be. Now, where is the butt of the club? Take that back again to center, Artie. Show that left elbow folding down and stop right there. There. See how the butt of the club's back in the center of the body. Now, show them as the left elbow releases, the club is still in the center. He's releasing his whole right side and his body. With what, Artie?
With my
feet and legs, right?
You betcha.
Now bring it back, set it down, and take it back up there again with the feet and legs. This little drill is great. And through. Now another drill, show them, and I think again it gets back to good feels and you do it right. Show them the split grip drill. This is our favorite drill.
Yeah, it's very hard to take the club inside when you're splitting your hands because it would feel awkward. Now when you have them together, it doesn't feel so awkward. But if you were to split your hands, it puts your hands and body in the right spot just about every time. You need about 2 or 3 inches between your hands to do it. And you feel left and right equally.
And show them as you square back up where it would be. And there it folds and rolls down. Bring it around. It's where it started. This is the drill that Curtis Strange tells me all the time. He thinks this is the best drill that's ever been done. He thinks it's meant more to him about his golf swing than any single thing. There, and there. Very good. Hit a couple of shots now. Show them some club head speed. And show them now a tossing motion with a club in your right hand. And I want them to see how you're generating that club head speed with your feet, legs, and body. That all you're doing is holding the club with your right arm. Do a one-handed swing, just away from the ball, Artie. Just take the left hand off the club. Show them the tossing motion. That's the tossing motion. Now, that's what Hogan referred to when he said, feel like you're throwing a ball underhanded with your right side. Watch as he loads back. Let the right go. Now, show them what would happen if you got back and tried to pull the club down with your right arm. Or it would just flip by you and cross over. That way. It's right side. Show them the difference in right side. And show them right arm. And the body stop it. Stay back and there. That's what people are told. Stay behind it, cross your right arm over your left. It's fine if you like to hit duck hooks.
Now let's review what we've talked about today. All athletes fire the right side. Watch the quarterback here as he loads into his right side. Watch how the whole right side comes forward and he ends up on his left side. Watch the baseball player here. Watch his right side release. Watch the hockey player from the ground up as he shoots the hockey puck. Watch the golfer. Watch the right foot, right knee. Watch the right side stretch through the ball. Secondly, when you fire the right side, the right hip must be up to hit a descending blow. Watch Hogan here. Watch as he moves back into the right side. You'll see the right side fire and stretch through the ball. See the right hip level and the stretching, all of its weight on the left side. And finally, you must maintain centrifugal force to be square at impact. Watch J.C. Sneed here. His right hand's on the outer force, the left hand's on the inner force. Watch as he goes through the ball. You'll see his right hand stay on the outer force, and the club squares up through impact. Proof to me has been Hogan. He once said he wishes he had 3 right hands to hit it with. To me, that's the proof of the firing of the right side. Now take these fundamentals to the practice tee and work on them.
Next week on Jimmy Ballard, the fundamental golf swing.
I never like to talk in the hitting area because I feel that's a result of getting in the right position at the top and knowing where to go at the finish. And so therefore, the triangle at waist high with the club in the center of the body is proof of the release in the golf swing.
Jimmy will also explain how to release down the line of flight to prevent the dreaded slice. All this and more next week on Jimmy Ballard, the fundamental golf swing.
But it ought to be. He's my #1 assistant. I'd like to introduce you to Artie McNichol. He's going to demonstrate for you the fundamentals of the golf swing, what we call the common denominators, which, as you will see, is nothing more than an athletic move in the golf swing. Artie played the tour some 10 years, from 72 to 81.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, the first 5 years I couldn't break an egg out there. I came in to see you in 1977, and my golf swing got a whole lot better and I had a lot more fun out there. But I'm not so sure there's much of an athlete left in this body.
Don't tell me that now. For sure, golf professionals are athletes, and that swing that you just made was an athletic swing. And I want all of you to know, all athletes have athletic moves, whether it's golf, whether it's baseball, whether it's boxing, whether it's hockey, football, it makes no difference. All pro golfers are athletes.
This week, Jimmy and Artie will demonstrate common denominator number 6, maintaining the triangle and center through impact. They will also show how to properly release the club down the line of flight. This will ensure the continuance of connection and aid in preventing the dreaded block or slice. And finally, they will demonstrate how the left elbow must fold down in order to remain connected throughout the golf swing.
If your golf swing is a painful reminder your scores are not up to par, your swing may suffer from what Jimmy Ballard, the most sought-after golf instructor today, calls disconnection.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Ballard. My popular swing connector connects the lead arm in both right-handed and left-handed players to the lead shoulder, securing it against the chest so the lead arm can fold naturally to release the body to a straight, balanced finish.
The swing connector trains the body's muscle memory through prolonged practice on the course or range, shadow boxing indoors during bad weather, or working out your strokes at the office. The swing connector encourages a smoother, more coordinated swing. When worn high across the chest and upper arm, practice normal trajectory shots. Try it low across the midsection and bicep for chipping, bunker shots, and putting. The Jimmy Ballard Swing Connector, your connection to golf swing perfection. To order your swing connector, call toll-free 1-800-544-1000. All major credit cards accepted.
Now what I want to do is I want to talk with you about release. I want you to understand, number one, I want you to see and understand what a block is. And I want you to see what a release is and understand it. Now, Remember the first pictures I showed you of Hogan in his early days, before he changed his swing, how his left arm ran out of the socket. I think the best way to show you the results of that and to show you the opposite of what people feel sometimes. Hogan always thought when he hit a bad shot in his early days, he felt that he always hit the duck hook. That was the one he feared, the one he called the terror of the field mice, the duck hook. Now, I want you to look at his old swing first, which, like I said, he's made quite a few improvements on, quite a lot of changes. And you see the arm out of the socket. That caused him, when he came into the ball, it caused him to come in what we call a blocked position. Now, what we mean by blocked position is when the left arm is pulling and staying straight, that makes the body block back. Because of the straight, stiff left arm, it blocks the body back. And once the body is blocked back, you have two choices. You can wipe across it with an open blade and hit a lot of weak shots, or you can be blocked and flip your hands, and that's all you can do is flip your hands because your left arm is stiff. It won't release, the elbow won't break, so the hands will flip, and you hit the duck hook. Now look at Hogan's old swing, and I want you to notice how when he came into the ball, and this is incorrect, he totally changed this. Do you see his stiff left arm? You see the gap between his arms, and do you see how his right shoulder is tilted completely under his left? Can you see that? Okay? Now that's very, very important that you can see that blocked position of the right shoulder under the left and that daylight. See the stiff left arm. Very simple. Hogan wrote himself what he changed. In the 5 fundamentals, he very clearly said right here that he now feels that he holds a handkerchief under his left armpit going back, and as he goes through the ball, the left elbow folds right down on his tummy. He drew it in 1957. He illustrated it. He's showing the left arm against the body where it's holding the handkerchief there, and he's showing the right side releasing down the line. Can all of you see that difference? And the main difference that you'll see is in the total release, when Hogan released the club correctly, his right arm, as he went through the ball, is equal to his left, on top of his left instead of under it. Can everyone see the difference? It is an opposite. You follow me? Now, I'll demonstrate that to you. Hogan's old swing, as you saw, his right arm is under his left, and he flipped his hands. That's a block and a dug hook. When he changed his swing, the left elbow hinged down on his body, his right side, his spine, his eyes released, and he hit a descending blow down the line of flight. A release in the golf swing is not the right forearm crossing over the left. A release in the golf swing is not the left arm pulling and the right arm going under it. A release in the golf swing is when you release your right side, your spine, your eyes, and your body. Your left elbow folds down. That's releasing everything to the target. I think the best example that I could give you would be to say to you, if I gave you a pail of water. Now, I do not want you to hold the pail of water by the handle in the bottom of the bucket. Hold the pail of water on its side, on the side of the bucket. If I took this pail of water I have in my hands, or pretend that I have one, and I wanted to toss it on that wall, could I pull my left arm and have my right under my left and toss that water on the wall? I'd spill the water on my feet, wouldn't I? To toss that water on that wall, wouldn't I go like this? Wouldn't my elbow fold down? Wouldn't my spine and eyes be at the target? That's a natural tossing motion. If I took a basketball and held the basketball on the sides and I made an underhanded tossing motion, wouldn't I toss it that way to the target? Could I toss a pail of water, a basketball, or even a baseball to a person? Could I do that, keep my head down, tuck in my right arm, pull my left arm? Would that be a natural way to do it? But yet, that's what you've all been told, isn't it? It's dead wrong. There's no way in the world that you can pull the butt of the club or your left arm at the ball and stay behind it with your right elbow tucked in and ever release. All you can do is block your body back and spend the rest of your life pulling up, coming out of every shot to the right, or flipping your hands and duck hooking or pull hooking it. The only way you can go to the target is to let your spine and your weight shift into your right leg. Then when you fire your right side, the club squares up, the left elbow would fold down, and you release everything to the target. A perfect example of that would be real simple to show you right here. Here's a picture of Gorman Thomas hitting a home run, and here's a picture of Hogan hitting a driver. Couldn't both of them hold a handkerchief? under their left armpits? Doesn't both of them's left elbow break? And that's the only way you can get extension down the line, is for that left elbow to fold down and for you to release your right side down the line. That's why when you see Hogan's full swings to the straight balance finish, you never saw his left elbow again, because his left arm folded down and the right side released down the line. Now, that's not just Hogan. It's Curtis Strange. It's Hal Sutton. It's any of your great ball strikers. Sevy, when he's holding a handkerchief here. Sandy Lyle, I know it's meant an awful lot to Sandy to feel the connector on that held his left arm down. It's changed his whole golf swing the last 2 years, where he could really release this thing down the line every time. You cannot release down the line with a straight step left arm and pulling. It's your body that releases your hands and arms. You cannot hold your body back and release your hands and arms. You can never hit a golf ball holding your body still with your arms working around it. We use an example sometimes, it may or may not, but we have a lot of fun when we teach sometimes. One of the best examples Hogan ever used is the thing that I've said repeatedly: throw a basketball underhanded to a target. Well, what we did is we got a picture of Bobby Knight throwing a chair across the basketball court. That's his takeaway. Here's a picture of Hogan hitting a driver. Takeaway. How close are they? You follow me? Look at Hogan's right arm. He didn't never tuck his right arm in. His right arm was always out. Hogan never had a handkerchief under his right arm. He had it under his other right arm, his left one. Hogan never was confused. He knew which arm to put it under. It's the teachers that are confused. They can't decide the left from the right. And those of them that got it under here don't know what they're doing, in my opinion. The left arm. And I want you to notice how from there the right arm got away, and look at the similarity to throw the chair, to hit the golf ball. Now, I want to take it a step further. Look at the release through the ball when he threw the chair. Where are their head and eyes and spine? All facing the target. Bobby Knight didn't throw that chair across the court that way. Bobby Knight threw that chair across the court like that, and like all golfers that play golf, they release the right side and the body down the line of flight. And the only way, folks, and I'll let you stand here every day and try it, there's only one way this club can stay low down the line of flight, and that's for your left elbow to fold down and to release your spine and belt buckle at the target. And if you try to hold your head and your spine back, all you can do is pull across the line of flight or rotate around the line of flight. I defy anybody to show me any difference if you know anything about the physics of the golf swing or physics, period. You cannot cross your body. You have to let your body release.
Now let's all join Jimmy back out on the practice range.
I want you to understand, we always want the club traveling the fastest through impact. So I never like to talk in the hitting area, because I feel that's a result of getting in the right position at the top and knowing where to go at the finish. And so therefore, the triangle at waist high with the club in the center of the body is proof of the release in the golf swing. Now, the best way I know how to say that to you would be this. From the starting position, if the right side is firing coming through the ball, what we want you to do is feel that the left elbow folds down, and when the left elbow folds down, the right arm can get long and get extended down the line. That's centrifugal force, and you can see how the club is back in the center of the body. Now, many of you, again, have been told so often to pull your left side, to pull the butt of the club at the ball. All you can do if you pull the butt of the club at the ball and the butt of the left hand at the ball is to pull across the line of flight and get into what we call the block position. The block position is the left arm off of the body, straight and stiff, blocking the body back, making me hit under, up, and across the line. Always a low point of my arc is coming under and up, and you can see the angle. We see nearly every golfer that comes to us in this position because they're all told to pull the left arm and to keep it extended, and all of them, of the average golfers, just pull across the line of flight every single time. What has to happen here, again, is that left elbow is folding down. That's the inner force of centrifugal force. The right side is firing. The right side is extending down the line. The club would be in the center of the body, the same as it started.
I'm releasing my right side and my body, so therefore I would have the triangle intact at waist high. Another way to feel this is to say to you, this is the toe of the club, this is the heel of the club. Never in golf do you pull the heel of the club at the ball. All you can do is wipe or pull across the target line. You're always swinging the toe of the club, and we feel like at waist high through the ball, you put the toe in the air. Now, the toe in the air is important. A little drill to get the feeling of the toe in the air is to take your index finger on your right hand and run it down the shaft and just point to your target. How could you point to your target without having your right hip level, your belt buckle at the target, and your left elbow folded? How in the world could you point to the target, pulling the butt of the club, keeping your left arm stiff? You can never release the club to the target. All you could do is block across it, hitting it to the right with the butt of the club out of center. Or, a lot of players tell you, when you get into the ball, rotate your hands. Well, if you want to hit snipe hooks, rotate your hands. But they're not much fun. If you stay behind the ball, pull the heel of the club and rotate the toe of the club or rotate your hands, you hit slap hooks, because what happens is you create an angle with the hands crossing the spine, crossing the body. Where is the toe of the club? It's around instead of up. To go to the target, the toe of the club must be in the air. It can't be crossed over left. It can't be crossed under. The idea is this triangle and the spine and the body is releasing down the line, pointing to the target with the toe in the air. The left elbow is folded down. One other thing I'd like for you to see here. Notice that when I fire my right side, my right hip is up. It would have to be in a tossing motion. I have to be up to hit down. My right hip is up. My right side is extended. The only way I can get my right side extended is to fold my left elbow down. If my left arm is up in the air and my elbow is in the air, do you see how my right side and my right arm will never be extended? That's the block position with the angle. If I want to extend this, my left has to fold. Now it's in the center of my body. The same thing would apply to a baseball batter if he's hitting a home run. The same thing would apply to a golfer. The same thing would happen to a tennis player hitting a forehand down the line. He'd have the tennis racket here. You will not see a tennis player hit a forehand down the line blocking it. People are told to hold their head still, get a stiff left arm, and take the club inside. That, to me, is one of the worst things you can tell somebody. And what happens, let's demonstrate the roll one more time, and then let's talk about a feel to get a person out of the roll. First, show if you kept your head still in the body, how your left arm would roll over your right. Right there's an angle. The club is on too flat a plane. His arm is disconnected. There's no way there that he can use his legs and body. So from there, you'd pull through with the arms over the top, pull with the arms and block it. Every time we see the club hit over the top, we always find it's because the guy took it inside and rolled it. Tell them about a feel you feel with that left elbow to get the club back right and it ties it into the shoulder. Describe that feel.
A lot of times, if you can just make sure that your left elbow, which should start pointed at your left hip, at the top of your backswing, if it's pointed at the ground, it'd be very difficult to have rolled your left arm over your right, because if you did, the left elbow would be pointed at you, Coach.
Right. Ow. And look at the socket, how the arm is disconnected from the socket. Now there again, if you held the handkerchief under your left armpit, plugged it in, do you see how the left elbow would be down? That's where good hitters would be in any sport. Now from there, show them how, as it squares up, where the left elbow would be. Now where is the butt of the club? Take that back again to center, Artie. Show that left elbow folding down and stop right there. There. See how the butt of the club's back in the center of the body. Now show him as the left elbow releases, the club is still in the center. He's releasing his whole right side and his body. With what, Artie?
With my
feet and legs, right?
You betcha.
Now bring it back, set it down, and take it back up there again with the feet and legs. This little drill is great. And through. Now, coming through the ball, show them where you were, because of the way you used to take it away. Again, show them the block position coming through the ball. And I know that's where you were when the right arm was under your left.
I was right here and reversing to the point where I couldn't use my legs at all, so I always found myself this way going through.
Right.
My legs got used after my arms instead of using them to swing my arms.
And also point out here that the left arm, show how your arms are pulling, and that's pulling your legs. Show the difference if your left elbow folds down and extend the right side. Watch how see now his right side is unwinding his body. His feet and legs are unwinding his body. Now do that again and show the arms pulling the leg with a slide. I think they can see that. That's when you there. And show the difference when your right side releases, your left elbow folds down, and that's the right side releasing to the left. And look at the difference in the balance. It's on plane. Bring it around, set it down. It's where it started. Now, let's talk about feels coming back through the ball of the firing of the right side. Now, what I'd like to do here, Artie, the same thing. You know, a lot of times when we get people releasing, you know their feel sense a lot of times is, I feel the right arm cross over the left. Show them here a little bit about how it's really the right side releasing and it's really staying the same, that it's not crossing over.
I've known people to talk about it, and what they produce on camera is this. That's the crossover of the arms. And in reality, when I feel my right side work, it's a release of the body, and my arms happen to turn out that way when my left arm folds down.
Show them a little drill there with a club on the ground. Now just release it up with a little pressure in the shaft, right there. Now do that again and do it slow, Artie, and let them see how your feet and legs is unwinding your body, and his arms are just laying on his body where they started. He didn't really do anything with his hands and arms. Feet and legs and body did it. Now, show the difference in staying behind the ball, which is incorrect, and crossing the right arm over the left, which a lot of people are told to do. That's a little exaggerated. Don't do it quite that much. No, what I mean is with the crossover. Just show a little bit of how the head would stay back and how the right arm would cross over. Yeah. Now, that's where we get the big hooks with people a lot of times. And, of course, like you said, sometimes they even do it worse. But right there is still a hangback and a crossover. Now show them the block position with the cross under, the right arm coming in. That's the left arm pulling and left arm extended, but a block across the line. Now show them the difference with the left arm folding down and the right arm extended and with a triangle going through correctly, right there. Now that's there feel-wise. Again, let's talk about some feels that we have players, that our different players have felt to feel a release. I think the toe of the club. Talk a little about that.
Well, I know that if you block it, you'd feel the heel going in the air, or you at least ought to. And if you can put the toe in the air with your body, you'd be releasing your body, and putting the toe in the air would square the blade up down the line. That's a good way to feel it through it. I've used that before.
Now let's review what we've talked about today. The triangle must be maintained through impact. Notice here with Hogan now, as he takes the club away, notice as he comes through the ball, how the triangle and the butt of the club is back to the center of the body there, and he's right in position to release for his left elbow to start to fold out. Secondly, you must release down the line of flight. Now watch Raymond Floyd here as he goes through the ball. You'll see his right side go down the line, and notice his head and eyes are coming right up with the swing as his right side releases down the line of flight. And finally, the left elbow must fold down for a proper release. Notice here with Artie, he demonstrates that for you going through the ball at waist high. The left elbow folds down, and that allows your body to go forward. Now take these fundamentals to the practice tee and work on them.
Next week on Jimmy Ballard, the fundamental golf swing.
Every great player who's lasted more than 10 years, all of them finish over on their left side. Their spine is straight, and they have what we term as a straight balance finish with the weight all on their left side.
This week, Jimmy and Artie will explain and demonstrate common denominator number 7, the straight and balanced finish. This will aid in transferring all the weight entirely to the left side. When the full swing has been completed, a player must finish with his hips and shoulders level to the target. This is proof that connection has been preserved throughout the swing.
Finishing in a straight, balanced finish will also promote longevity and help to avoid lower back pains. An important part of every Jimmy Ballard Golf Workshop is the classroom instruction.
I want you to understand that I know there are different ability levels in golf, but I want to tell you something. We find that every person has a certain amount of athletic ability if they go about it with a natural athletic motion. As an example of what I'm saying, and I like to start all of my sessions this way. If you take Ben Hogan, and he said in 1957, when he wrote the 5 Fundamentals of Golf, he made a very, very simple explanation to you about the golf swing. He said it's simply if you stood in a golf position with your feet and legs shoulder width, if you took a basketball in your hands and arms, he said just imagine that you were holding the basketball and you were going to make an underhanded tossing motion to a friend. I want you to understand he was telling you how to hit a golf ball, but yet some people never related to that for some reason, and I don't understand why. If you visualize, or rather, say visualize, if I show you a picture of Ben Hogan swinging a golf club, and then I showed you the motion I'm making here of tossing a basketball underhanded, I think you'll see the similarity. I think you'll see where it fits in, and it's all the same. So that is a natural motion, and that's where we are. That's where we're coming from. So now, to get started, what I'd like to do first is I'd like for you to understand that, as you already know, I'm sure, there are a lot of misleading terms in golf. In other words, there are a lot of terms that you've been told in golf are the true fundamentals in the golf swing, when we find, in truth, they are not the fundamentals of the golf swing. So that's what we're trying to find out in here. We want you to see what the true fundamentals are, and yet you know what you've been told. So I want to start in this way. I'm going to show you pictures as I go along of where the great ball players are, where the great strikers of the ball are, and let you understand it. We start here. If you were tossing a ball underhanded, would any of you hold your head down and still and try to toss a ball? Or do you think about it in this manner? If you were going to toss a ball, wouldn't your weight shift to the right? And when you did, do you see how the head would just flow with the spine to the right? And then when you made the tossing motion through the ball, do you see how the right side would release and the head and eyes and spine would face the target? That's very, very important for you to understand that at this point. Everyone has been told in golf to hold your head down and still. I'll make this point to you right now. In the history of the game of golf, I've never found a picture or a photograph or seen any good player hold his or her head down and hold his or her head still. Now, what I want you to understand is what happens with the head. Your head is simply a 17-pound weight on the end of your spine. And that's what you must understand. Now, if someone tells you to hold their head down and still over the ball here, how could you have any motion? How could you hit anything? And what it actually causes you to do by trying to hold the head down and still, this 17-pound weight staying here, and yet you're trying to go back to hit something, it ends up with the body reversing here. Now, I want all of you to remember one thing. I have you on film, and I can show you what happens. And you're the one who knows if you try to hold your head down. So we'll see what happens. And I'll tell you what will happen right now. Every one of you who tries to hold his or her head down and still over the ball, the spine will bend in this manner because of the 17-pound weight holding the head over here. And when you try to shift the weight, this 17-pound weight tilts your spine here. From right there, there's no way that you could make a move to toss, throw, or do anything athletic in that direction. What will happen from this position with the head over here is your hips will slide, your spine will go back in this direction, your head will go back, and then plus you're being told to keep your head behind it, and you will pull up, look up, and come out of every shot. And all of your friends will tell you how you looked up, you pulled up, you didn't keep your head still. So what will you do? The next swing, you'll try to hold your head down a little more, your body will reverse pivot a little bit more here, and you will pull up, look up, and come out of every shot. And it's all due to the fact that this 17-pound weight, trying to hold it here, tilts or bends your spine in this manner, and then you have no choice but to go back this way. And I will add one other thing here, and as we talk and as we get into the golf swing, you'll understand it. What do you think this would do to your lower back or to your spine if your spine is being tilted in this direction? if any of you are having a little bit of lower back problems or any back problems, you might find that a lot of it's caused from where your head is in the golf swing. Now, to hit something hard, you cannot take your left arm and get it straight and stiff. That is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. Now, what does happen is this, and I want you to understand a couple of things. What have you always been told in golf? Get your left arm straight and stiff, hold your head still. Well, if you hold your head still, you have to hold your spine still. So then the only thing you can hit a golf ball with if you're going to hold your head and your spine still and get a straight left arm is to grow your arm right out of the socket. Now, I'd like to know how you can hit anything hard by taking your left arm and getting it stiff, holding your head over the ball, and pulling your left arm. And that is essentially what you've been told. Because when you say straight, stiff left arm, everyone works from the joint or from the socket. Now, I want you to understand something. First of all, what have you all been told to play golf beside keep your head down, stiff left arm? You've all been told to turn, haven't you? That is one of the most ridiculous statements, in my opinion, that you could make, or that a golf pro could make to a student, is to tell him to turn. Why would you tell a student to do something that is impossible by the laws of physics to do? And that's what they're doing when a person tells you to turn. You can't turn in a golf swing. No one in this room can turn because everyone in this room has two legs. And if you have two legs, you have two sockets and you have two joints. The point I'm trying to make is this. No one can turn, or nothing can be turned from two sockets and two joints. You can turn if you want to play golf on one leg because you then have one socket and one joint. Now, the best way I know how to explain this to you is this manner. If I took this golf club and I took a ball joint and socket and connected it to that club, I could turn that club, couldn't I? Because it would be one ball joint and one socket, so therefore it would turn. The same as you. You could stand on one leg and you can turn because it's one pivot point. It's one socket, it's one joint. Now, I want to ask you something. If I took that ball joint and socket and had it there, and I could turn the club, what would happen if I took another ball joint and socket and put it right there? Could you turn that club now? Then I want to ask you something. When you take the waistline here and you have two sockets and two joints, I'd like to ask you, how in the heck can you turn from there? How do you turn from two sockets and two joints? Ask any engineer in the country. You can't, and it's impossible. You can twist. You can twist from two sockets. But you can't turn. You have two choices. You can shift into your right leg. And now how in the world can you shift to your right leg and hold your head down? You can't. Now let's talk about common denominator number 7, which is what we term as the straight balance finish with the elbows down and together. Now, over the years, the one thing that I have looked for in the golf swing is the longevity of players. I've always felt that great players, when you truly look at your great players last 10 years or longer. I don't know how some of these players last 5 years with the way they bow their backs and the way they go through the ball. I know that over the years, people have been told to stay behind the ball and to hit into the inverted C. Well, to me, that's the surest way in the world to pull up, look up, to come up out of every shot, plus the damage that it can do to your lower back from there. Now, what we have found out in the history of the game, every great player who's lasted more than 10 years, all of them finish over on their left side, their spine is straight, and they have what we term as a straight balance finish with the weight all on their left side.
Now watch Julius Boris here, one of the great ball strikers of all time. See the soft arms in the setup? And watch as he goes through the ball. Watch his right side fire. And look at his hips, level. His shoulders are level, all the weight on the left side. Great finish. Now watch George Knudsen here. No one went through the ball any better than he did. Watch as his right side fires. Again, the level hips. The spine is straight. No pressure in the lower back at all. Everything on the left side balanced. He can take a step forward. Watch Nicholas when he was in his 20s. He was really something in these days with a lot of power. Watch the right side fire. Look at the level in his hips when he finished. You can see the leg drive to the left side. Watch Sam Snead. This is in the 50s. And watch here as he goes through the ball. Watch when his right side fires. Watch again the level in his hips, the level in his shoulders, and you can see how straight the spine is, and all the weight's over on the left side. Very nice. And here he is in 1988, and watch this man's right side, and it's proof of longevity in the golf swing. Look at his right side. Look how straight he is in the finish. Look at his spine.
We hate the thought or the term stay behind the ball, because one of the things I want you to understand, what makes the ball go in the air is the fact that you're up with your right side, hitting a descending blow down and through the ball, and the spine would end up straight and balanced with the elbows down and together if you go down the line. How in the world could you stay behind the ball, pull your left arm, and hit into a straight balanced finish? No way. All you can do is your right hip comes in under your left, your spine is bent. You have a choice here of blocking with your arms or flipping your hands and hitting the duck hook, but all you can do is injure yourself, and you lose a lot of power. The only power you would have is if you flip the hands from there. You could be a pull hitter and maybe hit some long shots, but you can't hit them straight. But if you'd let your whole right side go, the loft of the club would lift the ball. You would hit down the line of flight. You would finish perfectly on balance on your left leg, or even like Gary Player and Trevino walk. But take a look at Snead. Take a look at Boris. Take a look at Lidler, Sutton, Curtis Strange. I remember when Curtis Strange first came to see me, one of the things that he had a problem with is he would hang back on his right side, and he hurt his lower back some. He could feel some pain there. So one of the things we talked to him about, of course, is to finish all the way on his left with his elbows down, straight balanced finish. You can see that in his swing. Snead, Hogan, Littler, Sutton. There's no bow in their swing. They're always up where they can hit down the line with extension, and to do that, you'd have to finish straight and balanced. There's no way you could hit down the line with extension by bowing and staying behind the ball. You'd have a short arc. You'd be hitting under, up, and across the line every time, or under and up and across the line flipping your hands. If you hang back, you cannot. And a golf ball does not get in the air because you stay behind it and lift it. The golf ball gets in the air because you hit a descending blow down and through it and finish in a straight balanced finish. You want to get an extended right side down the line of flight. That's the only way you can hit a descending blow down and through the ball. You have to keep your right hip up to be able to hit down, or what we call it drives up. When the right foot, right knee, right hip kicks up, I feel my right side hitting down. If I pull my left side at the ball, my right hip goes under my left, my right elbow would tuck in, and I'm hitting under and up and across the line every single trip. The more I tuck my right elbow in and pull my left arm, the more across the ball I am. Now let's talk about, another way again back to center or the spine, which we mean facing the target. We talk about the straight balanced finish and how to get there. The faster you move center, and I think you could maybe do this by moving the club back and forth, show them how your arms are lay there, and show them, take it back to the top. Now from there, zip it through for us. Now I want you to notice that Artie's arms and hands are laying right where they started. What's moving that club through the ball, Artie?
Boy, I feel my legs, my body, and I can feel my center of balance go right towards the target.
And you feel like, don't you, that their spine and your belt buckle faces the target from the top. When you get to the top, from right there, we want to feel the whole spine, the center. We want to feel the right side drive forward and face the target as quick as we can. Good. Hit a couple now. Let's see if they can see that. And what he's doing is he's actually making his spine, his center, which is the center of the golf swing, centrifugal force, by being connected with his arms there, by the club in the center of his body. He can take it way real slow if he wanted to. He could set up his own tempo, but he could take it away real slow. But to hit the ball, he's got to move it fast through it. And that's the idea. Once we get coiled into the right leg, and again, this is a feel. A lot of times people feel like they want to take it back slow. Well, that's fine as long as once you get it loaded, you go fast.
Sometimes, you know, we've talked about different personalities. An A personality, his tempo is going to be quicker than a B personality. People have told me that I take it back too slow sometimes. I walk slow.
That's right. And not only that, here's the thing. Explain tempo, and let's talk about that a little bit. Everybody kind of has, just like you said, their own tempo. I remember a young man that played the tour that was a good player, but I've never seen anybody as fast in my life, Joe Porter, our friend. And Joe probably had the fastest hands and arms in the world. Well, I didn't ever want to slow that down as far as his fastness. What we wanted to do was get it together. And once he got coordinated, he could use that speed.
Sure, I know a lot of our students, they'll come in and they'll complain about being fast. And what I'll do to them a lot of times is I'll just have them lift the club above the ground, and I'll say, go ahead and take it to the top, but you're not allowed to use their arms. And I'd like you to do it as fast as possible. They go about this speed, and all of a sudden I let them understand if they feel fast, they're doing it with their little muscles. If they concentrate on their bigger muscles, whatever speed their life is, their tempo will be at the right speed because they're using big muscles.
That's right. And the idea now, again, show them the difference. Why you feel fast in the golf swing, why you would feel quick. Show them how centered, stay still, and it's just arms. And that's why you feel fast. Now, if he does it with his spine, if he lets it go back with his legs and body, there's the tempo. Now we want him to be fast. We want him to fire as hard as he can to try to get to that straight balance finish, facing the target as quick as he can with the left elbow folding down to the ground. Okay? I want you to explain and show them where your left shoulder is, show them where your right shoulder is, and show them where center is.
That's very confusing to a lot of our students. My left shoulder is my entire pectoral muscle and my entire lateral muscle. That's my shoulder girdle. Most everybody assumes that that joint is the shoulder. Same thing on the right side. My lats and my pecs are my shoulder girdle, and my center is the inside or this side of my spine. My spine is the center of my body, and when we're talking about using your shoulders, we mean the shoulder girdles, or we mean the spine moving, not the joint.
Show them now with connection. Get it up there and hold it in front of you. You don't have to put it down. Just kind of hold it up. Now show them there how you can move the club backing up with your shoulders. And the only thing that takes the club up is the hinging of the right arm. And as he goes through, the shoulders are stretching. And the only thing that hinges is his left elbow.
Now let's review what we've talked about today. A proper setup to ensure a proper finish. Now notice here with Snead, he's got the brace connected address, his hips and shoulders are level at address, and then notice as he goes through the ball, he finished the swing with his hips and shoulders level and balanced. Secondly, the hips, shoulders, and eyes must face the target. Now watch Curtis here. Watch as he fires his right side, and as he goes through the ball, the left elbow folds down, and notice his hips and shoulders are level, his eyes are looking right at the target. And finally, a straight, balanced finish promotes longevity. Now let's watch Sam Snead. He's just amazing. He's in his middle 70s. He still shoots par. Look at the balance on his finish when he goes through, and he just watches the ball in flight. Remember, the straight balanced finish will ensure longevity. Avoid the inverted C, and you avoid lower back pain. Now take these fundamentals to the practice tee and work on them.
Next week on Jimmy Ballard, the fundamental golf swing.
The hardest shot in golf to judge distances in because of the way people, they're so afraid of it. Now, and I think the main reason people are afraid of pitch shots is, again, they've always been told to hold the body perfectly still and to swing with the arms.
Jimmy and Artie will also demonstrate the successful steps to basic bunker play, as well as the proper fundamentals needed for chipping, the shot that saves the most strokes for the amateur player. All this and more next week on Jimmy Ballard. the fundamental golf swing. That good golf swing belongs to Artie McNichol, Jimmy's #1 assistant. Today they will demonstrate golf's touch shots, the pitch shot, the bunker shot, and the chip shot, and how connection is a part of each one.
Now let's talk about pitch shots, which probably is the hardest shot in golf to judge distances in because of the way people, they're so afraid of it. Now, and I think the main reason people are afraid of pitch shots is, again, they've always been told to hold the body perfectly still and to swing with the arms. Well, you're in between clubs, actually, is what happens. It's not a full shot. So therefore, how could you judge distances by standing still and trying to toss a ball 50 yards or 30 yards with your arms? Obviously, the natural way would, again, be just like the full shot. The miniature of the full shot. You'd shift to your right. Your hands and arms might go waist high. They might go just a little higher, depending on the distance that you want to feel. When you set up to hit this shot from 30, 40, 50 yards out, you first want to just kind of in your mind think about where would you get into your right leg to toss the ball. And then you can see how you would get the feel of how far you have to hit the ball. Artie, I think it would be a good point here to let people understand again the importance of the feet and legs. When you take your position, you're bracing your legs, feeling the inside, you're setting the triangle. But more important than anything else here in this shot, and I think that people feel is they always ask us, how far do you take it back? Where do you take the club? Well, obviously, again, you take it where you can feel that which you would make the tossing motion. And if you talk about a few things here, I would appreciate it.
I think that, again, you can't tell a person exactly how far to take it back because the tossing motion, you wouldn't think about it. Maybe if I could just toss one, then try to hit one one-sided like a tossing motion, it might illustrate it. If I were tossing it to that flag, I'd toss it underhanded about like that.
Now stay where you are, and notice where Artie's head and eyes, body, the whole right side released to toss it there. Now do a one-handed shot with just the right hand and a tossing motion. Now again, notice how the right side worked exactly as it did when he tossed the ball. He can bring his body back around, set it down, it's square where he started. Now, the only role the left arm plays here, it's connected, it's the inner force, the centrifugal force. It's going to hold the club in position as far as connection goes, but the motion is back to the right leg. You see a slight weight shift back to the right, then his weight shift is through to the left. Do it again, Artie. Take it back waist high. From here, you can see he has the triangle. If he wanted to hit it further, he'd just take it up a little further, but it's still the triangle. And then, of course, in the big shot, it would be on plane. So you can see from there, we still have the triangle. He makes the tossing motion. Where is he now? The left elbow's folded down. He's facing the target. The butt of the club is in the center of the triangle. So that's maintaining the original position, holding the triangle, pitching the basketball, as you could term it, throwing the medicine ball underhanded. That's your underhanded tossing motion, feeling the distance with the feet and legs. Artie hit a couple of shots here now.
Yeah.
Well, were you aiming at that hole?
Sure, I was aiming at the hole.
Oh, okay. Let's talk a little bit about ball positioning again on the, and I think it's important that everybody understands, and we say this with the full shots, with the short shots, and it applies everywhere. The basic position would be the ball off your inside of your left heel. That's where your normal trajectory would be. And then if we wanted to hit it high, we preset the blade open, or we can set the blade square, and you can see from there the ball is still forward in one, but both of them will hit the ball on a fairly high trajectory. By presetting it open, it only hits it higher because you preset more loft. Now, if you wanted to hit the low skidding shot in there, you got a good little wind blowing in your face, you move the ball back in the stance. But again, Artie, show them how the triangle and everything moves back, not an angle. You don't put your hands forward creating an angle, you move the ball back.
This would be normal.
Okay.
This would be moving the ball back and creating an angle, which we see most of our students trying to do.
Which is real bad. As you can see, the butt of the club is out of the triangle, creating an angle. There's no way he can square the club up if he presets that big an angle. Now, put the ball back, set the triangle. Now everything is square, and the chip shot, the pitch shot, can be hit solid because there's no angles. And then that drives the ball on a much lower trajectory.
Absolutely. It's got to be a tossing motion.
Let's talk a little now about some different types of lies you'll catch around like this. From the fact that if you had a little bit of a downhill lie here, you might show how, again, you'd have to level up if your feet were here and your left foot's lower than your right. So from there,
this would be leaning with the slope. I would not be able to use my feet and legs.
Show them what would happen if you took it away and you maintained there. The weight would stay over the ball or in front of the ball, and then the next move back, the weight automatically shifts back, and you'd hit the slope because it's coming down behind the ball and blade the ball on the upswing.
If I got to the ball.
If you got to the ball. Now the idea, watch him level up here. He levels his body so that the weight can shift to the right, and then he can hit down and through the ball, even on the little chip. Okay. Now let's hit a couple from the uphill slope. And again, it's the same principle. You need to balance yourself, level yourself up. You can see the natural slope would make him tilt, so we're going to lean into the slope, get our weight evenly distributed. From here, he can make a little weight shift to the right leg and then to the left. Very good. And notice all the time he's driving through the ball, never hanging back, staying behind it. The head and eyes are always at the target, even on the short shot. You have to release to the target. I'd like to talk with you a little bit about bunker shots, and I want you to understand that the bunker shots are exactly like the full shot, with the exception of how you measure to the ball. Let's talk a little bit here now about how we apply this in the bunker shot here, Artie. Let's talk a little bit first about position and the difference in measuring to the ball that we talked about earlier. I want them to understand the difference in hitting the bottom of the ball and measuring to the sand.
Sure. First thing you're going to do, especially on a windy day like this, you're going to probably dig in a little bit just so you can brace your body a little bit. Now, bunker shots are different than other shots in the fact that you measure to a different spot. What we've talked to you before about, you're always trying to hit the ball and then turf. That's how you'd hit a regular shot. You would measure to the back and the bottom of the ball. Well, bunker shots are different in that you would measure to a spot somewhere behind the ball. Now, that, of course, would depend upon the texture of the sand. Now, if you're going to measure somewhere behind the ball, you deliver a descending blow into the sand, creating a cushion of sand between the ball and the club face. And bunker shots are hit that way. You hit sand, then ball. Regular shots are ball first. Now, sand wedges are made to do that for you. First thing you've got to recognize is sand wedges have been designed with what we call bounce, meaning that the flange down here is rounded so that the leading edge is a little bit higher than the base of the club. That gives a little bit of a bounce here so that when the club enters the sand, it doesn't dig, but it goes through the sand, allowing you to hit behind the ball into the sand, creating that cushion of sand, and that's how you can hit a soft shot. So with bounce, the leading edge isn't flush like it would normally be with the ground. There's a little bounce on there. Leading edge is raised a little bit, and that allows the club to enter the sand and bounce through it.
Artie, if you would now, just show them that, again, let's make sure everyone understands that you're measuring to a point behind the ball. And as you said before, that's where you're hitting, not the ball to blast the ball from the sand. How far you measure behind it depends on, as you said, the texture of the sand, but also it depends on the distance.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you'd hit a little closer to the ball for the longer explosion. You'd hit further back for the short flop shot. But there again, let's demonstrate that. And I want to do it this way. Let's first show them playing all the shots with the blade square and just a normal trajectory blast from the sand with the normal lie, just a good lie as we have here.
And I'm not narrowing my stance too much. It's a little bit narrower than a full shot because it's not a full golf shot, but I'm a little bit narrow with my heels. I'm braced. I'm digging into the sand. I've squared the blade up, and I've measured to a spot somewhere behind the ball, and I'm just going to hit an explosion shot hitting the sand first.
Good. Now that's with a normal trajectory, and notice how Artie has released his body. Notice how the left arm is folded down, and he's in the balanced position, the same as a full shot. He can turn his body back, set the club down, and it's square where he started. Now, let's show them how to hit the same type of shot, but this time we're going to hit it on a little higher trajectory. We're going to set our body open a little, Artie, if you'll go through it, and we're going to preset the blade open. This is the cut shot. If you had a higher, even higher lip than we have here, to where you would hit the ball on the higher trajectory and get it up fast.
If this were my line of flight right through here, I'd set my body open a little bit, and then within my hands, right now I have a square blade, within my hands, I'd set the blade open. That simply gives me more loft.
And notice also, though, Artie still maintained the triangle that he had when he started. He did not set his hands forward by opening the blade with his hands and arms. He preset the blade in his hand. Now, Artie, if you will, show him the wrong way again. Set the blade back and set the hands, open the blade by pushing your hands forward. That's creating an angle, taking the club out of the triangle, and from there can be very serious trouble of hitting under and catching the ball on the upswing. People would hit the sand, but then they hit the ball on the upswing, they block through it, and that's the result of the blade. If Artie sits here now and presets, keeps the triangle, presets the blade open, now he can release the club by hitting the sand and down and through the ball, and that's all the difference in the world in hitting the sand on the descending blow and not hitting the sand coming up and across it. So do that for us now. With the blade set open, there's the high, soft flop shot. And there again, if we want to hit it further, you can do it, Artie, with the open blade again. Let's hit it harder. That's all we do. He simply speeds up the swing with his feet and legs to be more aggressive. Now he hits the shot a little further. And all of this distance is judged by the feet and legs. Talk about chipping the ball, the little pitch shots around the greens. This is where you can really save shots in a round of golf. These are the really important stroke savers. Artie, if you would, again, we want everyone to understand that it's nothing but a miniature of the big swing. It can be kind of waist-high to waist-high, knee-high to knee-high. Just talk a little bit, if you will, about the triangle, how we set up, and about the fact it's the same motion and maintaining connection.
Sure, it's just like a little tossing motion. You'd feel that distance with your feet and legs. In setting up, I certainly am not going to be shoulder width because I'm trying to use finesse with my feet and legs and not power. When I connect my left arm to my shoulder and I form my triangle, it's real crucial to keep this triangle between my hands and my shoulders formed by my arms together. That way I can make sure I maintain connection, and that's the way I can use my feet, legs, and my body. Instead of head high to head high in a little pitch shot, you might be ankle high to ankle high or knee high to knee high, but that's where your triangle really remains intact. I'm using a little pitch and wedge.
Artie, you hit that shot with your feet and legs, don't you?
Certainly. I'll tell you something very interesting that happened. In one of our workshops, Rick Barry was there, and I was trying to describe how you feel distance with your feet and legs, both power and finesse. And he started to laugh, and they used to ask him to go to a particular spot on the basketball floor. He'd either blindfold himself or he'd close his eyes, and he'd feel the distance to the basket with his knees and his feet and legs. That way I could look at you and shoot over here because I'd know where I was on the basketball floor, and that distance would be felt in the feet and legs. All sports are identical. Feet and legs are crucial even in the most miniature of shots.
And that means even on your little chip shot, there's a little weight shift, a little feeling of the weight into your right leg and to your left, and even the most delicate of the little pitches, right?
Certainly, I can avoid choking to a degree if I rely again on my big muscles.
And there's no way you can stand flat-footed, dead-legged, and field distance with your hands and arms with your head down. Yet, it's been instructions in golf for a lot of years.
Certainly.
The great chippers pitch the ball with the feet and legs.
Exactly like the full swing.
Right. Now, from here, we again talking about some shots. You can hit it with a pitching wedge, depending on the trajectory of shots you want. You may take a 7-iron, a 6-iron, a 5-iron, an 8-iron, depending on how much you want to roll the ball. You want to discuss that a little bit and the way you would feel that?
Sure. I just try to change clubs. I want to take advantage of my different clubs. We brought a wedge, a pitching wedge. That's the first shot I hit. I took an 8-iron out. I'd just be changing the loft, and I'd let it roll a little further. I'd still be making the same motion. You know, I think a lot of the amateurs, they're so instructed that a short shot is different than a full shot. You see them configure their body in such a strange way, like you say, keep your head down, get your hands in front of it, use your hands and arms and no body. How, again, would you go to the next tee and expect to make a good athletic move with connection?
I think that's a good point. And another thing here I'd like for the people to see, show when you set up how you set up with the triangle, then set up with the angles we're talking about, and let's let people understand why they hit some of the bad shots they hit when chipping. Set up square and right for me first. Now everything there, and show how the triangle and everything can shift back to the right. Just make a little motion back for us and let them see that. Just a little motion back. There's the triangle still intact. Now show how the legs go through and the triangle releases with it, and the club's still in the center. Now there again, the drill of the club through the chest, if you will, Artie. This is a particular good thing to do around the greens because everything is together. Notice how when he holds the club here, he moves the club with his body. He has to feel the feet and legs. So now when he grips the club down on the grip, we just maintain, just like there's an extension from there to there, the triangle back together. Hit one, Artie, and show them together and through, together. There's your triangle. On the chip shots, on the pitch shots, on everything. But you can really feel it and work on it on the short shots because you can maintain it all the way because the right side never breaks to go up on the little pitch shots. Show presetting your hands in front a little, if you will. Now here again, this is the wrong way. We see people get in, they set the hands up here. I want you to see from here, there's no way you could release that club. All you could do is gouge it and hit up on the ball. Now show the difference in, there's no extension through the ball here. The arc is very short. Now, bring it back to here and release it with a triangle. Look at the difference in the club being extended. The club is in the center, and it's also square where it started. So therefore, if there's no angles and everything is firm, you can chip the ball to the hole with no angles. Another thing that I think people are misled by, they're told to chip the ball, to pitch the ball, to cock their wrist. The second you cock your wrist, you created such an angle, there's no way you can square the club back without, to square the club up, period. You could either drag it across the line and block it, or you could flip your hands. But if you take the triangle back together, the arms, the folding here is together, and the feet and legs work, and therefore everything is firm and everything is released and maintained square throughout the swing. That way, the loft of the club is lifting the ball, not the person.
Sure, and anytime you set an angle with your hands, again, you'd be relying on muscles that'll choke more than your big muscles.
And a great way to feel that, if people, want to relate to that, is go ahead and try to chip a ball and cock your wrist and just see if you really think you could hit it from there. Or sit there and take the club and swing it here, and you can feel how every time you can square the club up. These little drills are important.
Now let's review what we've talked about today. The pitch shot is just a miniature of the full shot. It's a waist-high to waist-high feeling. It can be a knee-high to knee-high. But still, you're keeping the triangle intact, and the butt of the club is in the center of the body throughout the swing. Now, the sand wedge is built with a flange on it so that it won't dig, and so there'll be some bounce to the club. Now, remember, you always hit the sand first and hit a descending blow down and through the ball. And finally, when chipping the ball, remember, we measure distance with our feet and legs, very similar to tossing a coin underhanded. And remember, never create any angle. Now take these fundamentals to the practice tee and work on them.
Next week on Jimmy Ballard, the fundamental golf swing.
And what I want you to understand is that the putting stroke is nothing but a miniature of the big golf swing.
That good golf swing belongs to Artie McNichol, Jimmy's #1 assistant. Today they will demonstrate the techniques and fundamentals needed for a connected putting stroke, one that will hold up under pressure. Putting is a very precise part of golf, but no matter how you go about it, the main objective is to get the ball in the hole. It can happen from the left side or the right. It can be done with a cross-handed grip. Or it can be done with a conventional grip. The stroke can be made with a slightly open stance. Or one that is slightly closed. Putting from a crouched position enables a player to explode upward in times of jubilation. But great moments come with an upright stance as well. Next, Jimmy and Artie will demonstrate the proper fundamentals of putting, no matter what style you use.
Would you like to work on your game at the world-famous Jimmy Ballard Golf Workshop at Doral Country Club in Miami, Florida? The place where so many top touring professionals go to benefit from Jimmy's proven and time-tested methods. Pros at the pinnacle of their careers that still come home to Jimmy to work on the basic fundamentals. Well, if you can do the next best thing. Bring Jimmy home to you. The world's most successful teacher has just completed his all-new instructional videotape. Over an hour long, it methodically spells out and illustrates the very same fundamentals, complete with tips and drills that have helped so many touring pros. If you can't go to Jimmy, do your game a favor. Take Jimmy Ballard home with you. To order your copy, send a check for $49.95 plus $4.95 shipping and handling, payable to Ballard Reed Associates, care of Resolution, 1 Mill Street, Burlington, Vermont. Or use your credit card and call 1-800-843-0048.
What I'd like to do is talk to you about putting now. And what I want you to understand is that the putting stroke is nothing but a miniature of the big golf swing. And what we want you to understand also is that you release the putter, that you have connection in putting. And one of the really important things you have to understand is, though, when we talk connection, it's connection with the shoulders. Now, there's not any body movement, but still, the body is still, but we still use the shoulders. We still maintain connection. Artie, if you would, let's talk about grip pressure a little and how we set the club to the ball and how we achieve connection in putting.
I think there are a variety of grips that people use, but more important than the grip itself is grip pressure. If you were to just barely hold the putter off the ground, light enough to not drop it, you might begin to feel the weight of the club in your shoulders, in your pecs and your lats. That's your shoulder. That's your shoulder girdle. So many of our students come to us with a lot of tension in their arms, and they'd never be able to develop a shoulder stroke. With softer arms, they can feel the weight of the club in their shoulders, and that's proper grip pressure. You want to feel the weight of the club in your shoulders, and then you can develop a connected shoulder stroke. I think grips vary, but if you use connection and if you release the club properly, you could do it with a conventional grip. You can do it cross-handed. There are a variety of grips, but grip pressure, feeling the weight of the club in your shoulder, I think is most important.
Now let's talk about how we take the putter away, how the club goes back off the ball, and how it releases down the line with connection. Artie, if you will, let's talk a little bit about the putter coming straight back opposed to coming inside slightly or taking it inside with your hands. Let's discuss that.
I think a lot of people are under the impression that a blade or a putter should be taken straight back and straight through. If you do that, you're effectively shutting the blade and opening it and perhaps blocking it. A pure shoulder stroke with connection, the putter blade would travel slightly inside and then release down the target line. It isn't taken inside by fanning the putter blade this way, because then you'd be required to flip your hands over trying to hit it or release it. Again, the blade doesn't go straight back, that would shut it, nor does it go straight through, that would block it. It would travel inside with connection and always staying square to your shoulders.
Show them the little drill we have, the same as with the club, of putting the club in the center of your chest, and let them see how the putter would travel back.
Once you set a club in the center of your chest, you'd be forced to use your shoulders, and you'd be forced to putt with connection. If I set the putter right in the center of my chest and just took a stroke back with my shoulders, you can see how the shaft remains in center, just like in a full shot. And that encourages my shoulders to work. And the same way going through, the shaft would have to stay in center. That simply tells you that your shoulders are working. As a matter of fact, when we hit putts and we ask our students to hit putts, that's one of the ways we get them to feel their shoulders. If the shaft stays in center throughout the stroke, they would have had to use their shoulders.
Show them what would happen if you rolled it, it's out of center, if you fanned it inside.
If I take it inside on purpose, all of a sudden that shaft comes out of center. And then if I flipped it this way, it's out of center, and I'm relying on little muscle.
Right, right. Now show them again, if you kept it in the center, how it travels back, slightly inside, and releases down the line. Now let's do it and hit a putt.
I think this putt breaks slightly to the left.
Right. Okay. Now you can see there, when you release the putter, and let's talk a little about that. Notice when the putter is released, how the ball rolls over. Anytime the putter is released, you're rolling the ball, but when you block putt it, that's when you're spinning the ball. That's when you never find the solid spot on the putter.
That's correct. If you want to hit solid putts, once you know where your sweet spot is, if you stay connected and use your shoulders, you're going to return that sweet spot exactly where it started every trip. If you shoulder stroke it, you're hitting it dead solid and square. If you block it, you may or may not hit the sweet spot, and you certainly are going to decelerate that putter.
Correct. And that's across the line, and it'll spin the ball sideways instead of over, instead of rolling the ball over. Now we can talk here a little bit about Hubert Green. Always comes to mind with me because when Hubert plays good, nobody putts better than Hubert. And we know about the releasing. And you know, his putting stroke, he used to practice a lot, releasing the putter like a golf club as a practice aid.
Sure, I can remember Hubert. He'd even split his hands sometimes. And one thing that a lot of good putters will do, they'll take practice strokes like this. Probably the worst thing you can do in putting is to decelerate and dog it, leave it short. And if you were to make practice strokes very similar to a full shot and release it, Jimmy taught me once, sometimes you can release it by putting your finger down the shaft and just pointing to the target. I think people get more target-oriented when they point it at the target.
Definitely. I think one of the best drills in putting is with the index finger down the shaft. I think that gives you the feeling of the target all the time.
I think that if you were to run your finger down the shaft, the first thing that becomes important is the hole. You should be target-oriented. Now, if you were to run your finger down the shaft and simply try to stroke it to the hole, all of a sudden you might discover ways to release it. In other words, this is squaring it up to the hole. This would be blocking it, and that's not stroking it towards the hole.
And show them how, as you point to the hole with your index finger,
That's a way to feel it released. And then, of course, in the longer shot, how if it were a full shot, how the elbow would fold and it would continue on the regular swing. That's the way it would travel. Not that you would take it there on the putting stroke. You would nearly never take it much past that height there. But if you did, you can see the continuation of the release in the golf swing. About some of the different players and how their strokes are, but let's also understand that basically they're still doing the same fundamentals that we're talking about. They're connected, they're releasing the putter. Let's talk a little about Hubert Green first, because when Hubert putts, he putted awfully well for a number of years. He had a lot of different stances. Sometimes he'd get wide, sometimes he'd get narrow, but always Hubert released the putt.
He sure did. He never blocked it. I can remember Hubert doing a couple of things. Sometimes he'd split his hands, and he always would take a putting stroke in which he really released it. Two things happen. If you're working on that, you certainly aren't going to decelerating it, and you certainly are going to release it when you're doing that.
It's a little bit of a feeling when we say release. It's a little bit of a feeling of the toe of the putter going toward the hole, never the heel of the putter. I think that's a good point to bring up to people.
Absolutely. If the toe squares up, the toe even works in the air. Sometimes that's one of the things we ask our students to do. You never want to make a stroke with the heel working up. That would be blocked, and it'd border on deceleration. If you work the toe up in the air, you've always got to release it, and that also always keeps the shaft right in center. That lets you know you're using your shoulders.
Let's talk a little bit about Ben Crenshaw. I don't think there's a better stroke than that one.
Boy, on the regular tour, Ben Crenshaw does what we teach probably better than anybody else. On the senior tour, from the left side of the golf ball, Bob Charles does what we teach. If you ever have a chance to get down their line, you're always going to see the blade travel slightly inside with their shoulders, and boy, does Ben always release that toe in the air. He never blocks it. Of course, he's always been considered the best putter on the tour. Why? He releases it.
I agree 100%. Show us that one time. Okay. Very good. Now let's talk a little bit about alignment, about how we position ourselves. Some people are a little wider than others, some more narrow. Let's talk a little bit about the head and the eyes, where they should be.
I think one thing that very often happens is that just regarding your head and eyes, so many people will be told that they've got to keep their heads still over the ball, listen for it to drop. If you did that, you'd never enjoy the roll of the ball. If you watch all the best putters in the world, every one of them will track that ball to the hole with their eyes. I think it was in '86 that Johnny Miller won the AT&T tournament at Pebble Beach, and he never once looked at the ball. He looked at the hole for 72 holes. He simply set up, and he stroked it right at the hole. If you have a pure connected stroke, I don't think there's a better way to do it.
Well, no question. And, you know, this gets right back to the golf swing. You want to be target-oriented, not ball-oriented. You want to roll the ball. You want to swing the club. You're not trying to hit the ball.
Absolutely.
The club is freewheeling through the ball. And I think that's a good point that people must understand.
Regarding the head, there are a couple of things in setup that I think are important. One thing,
get you a ball here,
that we often see with our students, the amateurs, they're always being told that they have to keep their head directly over the ball or have their head and eyes directly over the ball. That's correct, but it's not the only place you can have your head and eyes. You can also set your head and eyes inside that line. If you set your head and eyes inside that line, you can comfortably see your target. You can see the line you're trying to hit it down. If you set your head and eyes directly over the ball, you still can comfortably see the line you're trying to hit it down and your target. But the one place you can't keep your head and eyes is if you ever let them get beyond the ball like this. Now you're looking cockeyed across that line, and boy, are you going to pull and push to compensate for that. I think a good idea for amateurs is if you feel comfortable, let your head and eyes be a little bit inside the ball, and then you never run the risk of setting them beyond the ball. I think that's a killer with a lot of amateurs.
That, Artie, and your balance. If you get your head out over there, all your weight goes to your toes, which again gets center down and you're working around yourself.
You run the threat of using your arms again.
That's exactly right. Now let's talk a little bit about alignment, about how you line a putt up and where your lines are.
Absolutely. We've drawn a couple of lines here on the green tape here to just give you an idea how similar this is to a full stroke. We don't really care how wide you are or how narrow you are. We don't care if you have a slightly closed stance or a slightly open stance, but one thing is crucial, that both your hips and your shoulders are parallel left of the intended line of flight or the intended line you're trying to putt it down. Again, if you had a slightly closed stance or a slightly open stance, I think you can see with these two lines on the green that my shoulders and hips are always remaining parallel to the line I'm putting it down. I think that's the way you can encourage your shoulders to work.
Well, like Bobby Locke is an example. Bobby Locke is probably one of the great putters of all time. He was closed in his feet, but you can check him every time. His hips and shoulders are dead square.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So parallel lines with your shoulders and hips are crucial if you expect to make a connected shoulder stroke.
Also, we'd like to say this. You're always aiming the blade and the ball to your target. Your feet are always on the line, parallel left, like a railroad track. The ball in line of flight is the outer rail of the railroad track. The feet and legs and body is the inner rail. To line up, to have the putter and the ball aimed at your target, your feet and shoulders, or at least your hips and shoulders, are always left. That's what people must understand. Now, this putt breaks slightly right, a couple of inches probably, so therefore your target is 2 inches to the right. And the ball, and you just let the break of the green take over. Okay, Artie, let's talk about taking the putter back, and let's talk about some of the myths in putting. People have been told for years to take it straight back. Let's show them what happens if you were to take the putter straight back. Let's show them how the blade would be hooded. The second thing in, people say take it inside. Let's show them how if you take it inside with your hands, all you can do is flip your hands coming back. Let's talk about inside, outside, and where we should be.
Sure. I think setting up on this line to demonstrate would be a good idea. Most people, like Jim said, have been taught to take a putter blade straight back. If you really did that, you'd be shutting it as you tried to keep it straight back on that line. By the same token, if you went straight through, you'd be opening it or even blocking it a little bit. If you took it to the inside, you'd be fanning the blade open. And to get it back to square, you'd have to roll your hands to do it, and that's difficult to do with any degree of consistency. A pure connected shoulder stroke, the blade travels slightly inside, releases, and travels back slightly inside. That blade always stays square to your shoulders. That shows you that you're using your shoulders to stroke it, not your arms, hooding it and opening it or blocking it, and not your hands by fanning it open and turning your hands over to release it. A pure shoulder stroke, again, one with connection, would be straight back and it would travel slightly inside because your shoulders would work it that way. And as you released it, the blade would travel again slightly inside because it's square to your shoulders the whole time.
Artie, let's talk a little bit about a routine that we go through before we go play, and then we'll talk about some practice things for us to do.
Sure. I think it's real important, especially for amateurs. You don't spend much time getting ready to play, but you could use 10 minutes wisely. If you took 10 minutes and warmed up on the putting green before you went out and play, if you spent 8 or 9 of those 10 minutes hitting the longest possible putts you could find, a number of things would work to your advantage. First off, if you hit a couple of 70-footers and your green superintendent keeps the putting green the same speed as the course green, you ought to be able to tell whether they're fast or slow for the day if you're watching 70-footers roll. You can't do that on 5-footers. If you're watching 70-footers roll and you hit a few 70-footers and your first putt on the course is a 20-footer, it's a short 20-footer. But most importantly this, if you're practicing some very long putts and you just happen to hold your finish, you can work on your stroke. If I held my finish on a long putt and I noticed that the shaft was out of center or across in front of me, I'd know right away I'm using too much wrist. If I hit a long putt and I noticed that when I finished, the shaft was behind me a little bit and not in center, I know I blocked it a little bit or decelerated. If I'm working a long putt and I make a stroke and I keep the shaft in center and the toe works up, I'm working on my shoulder stroke. Then I know that I've got my putting stroke where I need it. Then I take the last couple of minutes and tone down that putting stroke, taking it much shorter back, and momentum carries it further, much shorter. That gives me a good way to warm up.
Now let's talk about a practice routine.
I know one thing, once I've developed my putting stroke, if I'm going to practice, I'm going to spend some time at it. What I'd probably do is I'd take 10 or 15 balls and start out with 3 or 4 footers. And I'd have a quota of how many I'd have to make before I could back up. And I'd start with 3 or 4 footers, I'd back up to 6 or 8 feet, then I'd go 8 to 12 feet, and I'd make a number of them before I'd back up. Hopefully I'd work all the way back out to a driver till I knocked it on the green, but that'd probably take me forever.
The game's major champions make up an outstanding field. The world's greatest golfers tee off in the final round of the Canadian Open. Today at 4 Eastern, live on ESPN.
This is ESPN, the Total Sports Network.
Now let's review what we've talked about today. First of all, the putting stroke is nothing more than a miniature of the full swing. Notice here as Artie goes through the ball, see how the left arm is laying on the body, and in the full swing, it would simply fold. The left elbow would fold down. Secondly, you must release the toe of the putter down the line. Now notice here as Artie lets the putter go, it travels slightly to the inside, and then notice how the toe of the club releases down the line. That's hitting it down through the ball, even on a putt. And finally, the shoulders must be aligned to the target. Your feet, legs, hips, and shoulders should be basically square. In some putting strokes, you might set slightly open in the feet and legs. That really doesn't matter, but the shoulders must be square to the line. Now remember, you must stay connected in the putting stroke as well as in the full swing. Now take these fundamentals to the practice tee and work on them.
Next week, Jimmy Ballard will review the 7 common denominators of a fundamental golf swing. Common denominator number 1 is the braced connected address. Number 2 is taking the triangle and center away together. Number 3 is coiling into the brace of the right leg. Number 4 is the change of direction or the fall in. Number 5 is the firing of the right side back to impact. Number 6 is maintaining the triangle with center facing the target. And finally, number 7 is the straight, balanced finish. All this and more next week on Jimmy Ballard, the Fundamental Golf Swing. The preceding has been a presentation of Reed Dolph Incorporated.